We made the desert stillsuit from the movie Dune, and it took us about 8 months to make. We are terrible procrastinators. Patterns for the foam pieces will be provided in the description below if you want to try it yourself. But let me show you how we did it.
Prototyping will be our first step within our design process. And when I looked at the pictures, I found it very complicated. So what I just did is I've taken a mannequin and I've put pieces of paper on there, trying to see how everything fits together. Then we're going to take the pieces of paper of the mannequin and trace them on a new piece of paper so that we're sure that the pattern is what we want it to be. The next thing that we did is we transferred the prototype into usable patterns. We're going to digitalize them so that you guys can use them at home. We're going to transfer everything onto foam and start making our armor. For the build itself, we're going to use 5mm EVA foam of the lowest density. We also have high density, but for Dune, I think the most flexible foam is going to be the one that I'm going to use the most in this build. 5mm is thick enough. We don't need any thicker, probably for sturdy parts on the side, but we're going to layer up many parts after one another, and if we put too many layers of too thick foam, it will be a mess in the end. Okay, I think we finished the front side of the costume. We're also going to make the back as detailed as the front. Even though it's going to be covered in cloth and everything, if the detail is there and someone looks underneath the costume, they will still see the details. And that's what I like about a good cosplay costume. So some parts of the armor have a different texture, and our foam doesn't have a different texture. It's just plain foam. Now you can solve this by either using these stamps or rollers or a material that is very similar to the texture you want. Heat up the foam and press it into the foam. But because we're in the cosplay shop, we're going to use a material that is available to us, such as
mesh tart.
This material you heat up once, you shape it around your foam, and then afterwards you can't reheat it again, and it will stay solid around your foam as long as you want. we have changed location. We've built this set with materials from Cosplayshop so that we can work in a new environment without bothering Steve too much. And for the fabric part of our build, we're going to start working here on this big table. Okay, so from further investigation, I found that most of the Dune costumes are a brownish texture when it comes to the fabric parts. It's a little too light for what it is, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to weather it afterwards. So for that, we're going to use different materials, but for now, we're going to make the basic costume out of these three fabrics, which is a synthetic fabric that is brown, we have a cotton canvas, and we have a simple cotton for the cloak. So as funny as this may look, it is the base pants for the costume. Because our torso is only ending up until here, we have to make our pants a little higher. It will look silly without the armor on, but now this is the base that you definitely need to get some more depth into your costume. Because on top of the costume, there will be multiple pieces, and I will show you right now. Okay, this is basically with the top part. On top of it, I got a small little cap that I can just wear like this, like in a movie. I'm not gonna do that because I'm absolutely not happy with it. On top of this part, we're just gonna glue these foam dowels. Ta-da! Now we're gonna do the layering, because this still doesn't look like the Dune costume. So with some pieces attached to it, you already see that both the arm and the leg have more definition. This is only pinned in place, so it's a bit loose and some parts will look a bit janky, but later on, once we finish both the legs, we will attach them together and make sure that everything fits my body type. There are many details in between the layers. It takes some time to put them together, but I'll show you how it's done. Okay, and then the last part is definitely the leg. It's just a cover. It works, does the trick.
So the first part that we finished is the top part, or the jacket. And the most prominent thing, or the most detailed part on this part of the costume, is the sleeves. It's filled with some foamy material on the inside, so it has more volume, and it's easier to see the layers underneath. There are some tubes in there for circulation and everything. Also a lot of folded fabric to give more depth into the costume. So, one of the most important parts of the costume is of course the knees. The pattern consists out of one base knee part, which has a line in it, so it can fold and create a certain curve. And to get rid of this line, this glue line, we'll have an extra part that goes on top. Nobody will ever see that you have an ugly line from gluing on the inside. And on the inside you can see is here, but this will be glued to our knee, so nobody will ever notice. Of course, we can't miss the foam dowel, which is going to go on top of the foam eventually. If you take a careful look here, you'll see that I made a button stitch. A stitch that you normally place when you want to add a button on the other side, and then the button can peep through. I'm going to put the foam pieces in here, and for that I need to open it using a seam ripper. Yeah, a seam ripper. So now I'm using an alcoholic marker that I use for school purposes to just color in some of the filling material so that it looks not too white. So in Dune, they all have a mask that probably collects all their juices. These parts, we still have to make them in foam. We're gonna spray some glue so that we can stick the fabric on top of it. This is the pattern that we use to create the mask. If you take a closer look, I included some lines. These are just lines at the back that are created so that if I turn it around and just push it a little bit forward, you'll get a small little bevel. And it gives more definition to your costume if you do that. And we can use this as a highlight spot afterwards if we want. Just cutting out the blue line I drew on the foam. Once I cut it out, I can just pull out the string that I cut, and then I can bevel it a little bit. Just taking a piece of tape, going over the glued lines that I did there, trying to smudge it in and then pull it off. And then slowly but surely getting rid of the glue lines that we most definitely do not want. On one side the glue lines are gone, the other side you still see the shining. Let's spray some spray adhesive on both sides, the fabric and the foam. We finally finished all the foam pieces and the fabric pieces. So now it's time for painting and weathering. And before we do that, we start by heat sealing our foam. As you know, foam is a plastic that is expanded and it has an open cell structure. And if we don't close these cells up again, then the paint won't stick to the foam plate. So for that, we have got to heat seal it first, then prime it with Plastidip, and finally start painting it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of tin foil and we're going to heat up the surface that we want to weather a little bit. Now we're going to just slightly press in the tin foil at certain spots so that it looks very coarse and, well, used over the course of time. Heat it up and then just press it in. So by using Plastidip, we can prime all our pieces that we made. I mean, Plastidip is great because all these pieces will stay flexible, and I mean, they can bend a little bit and they will crack if you really abuse them. But for the most part, they will stay the same as normal. All the pieces are done, they're Plastidip, and now we're gonna glue them on top of the costume. If we don't do this before gluing them on, we're gonna have a bad time. Now, don't be deceived, because this is not the final result. In the next video, we're going to tackle all the weathering and all the painting that is required to make this costume look like it's really coming from the movie Dune. Of course, I want to thank the shop that we were able to film in this brand new location. And of course the boys that made this possible, SkyShark and Cyber Wizard, that helped me along the build. I thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. See you in the next video.